what are those tasks that annoy you every day? Like, those tasks that you have to repeat every day that annoy you. A good place to start is look how you can automate them, or, look how you can remove them through AI or automation, because there's probably a way that you can do it. I was also thinking while I was away, I had a few missed calls and stuff like that. Could I have put a voice agent in my voicemail that could answer my partner questions? Next time, I'm probably going to do it. And it's just trying to playing with what you have and not being afraid to just play, test. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then on to the next thing, right?
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from RecMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of recruitment tech and AI experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today.
Well, welcome to today's episode of the Tech Savvy Recruiter. Belinda Kerr and I are excited to welcome a guest who sits right in the intersection of technology, partnerships, and how humans actually communicate at work. Joining us today is Veronica Fernandez, a strategic partner manager with Aircall. She holds deep experience in sales, alliances, and ecosystem growth, helping technology companies and their partners connect, collaborate, and scale more efficiently. Veronica's career journey spans business development, channel strategy, partnerships, including her time at Aircall, where she progressed from frontline sales into strategic partnerships, working closely with system integrators, consulting partners to shape go-to-market ecosystems. Along the way, she's become known for her authentic leadership style, strategic thinking, and her ability to build strong human-centered relationships in highly technical environments. This makes her an absolute perfect guest for today's conversation, because this episode tackles the big question many of us are quietly asking as AI becomes embedded in how we talk, sell, support, and collaborate. AI is definitely rewriting everyday communication, from sales calls to customer support to internal messaging and partner conversations. But is it actually making us smarter, more effective, and more intentional, or are we outsourcing our thinking, our listening, and even our empathy to something else? So today we're going to unpack and explore how AI is changing the way that we communicate in business, what this means for our relationships, trust, and performance, and how leaders and teams can use AI as an amplifier rather than just a crutch. So let's get into it without further ado. Welcome, V. Would you like to add anything to the introduction about you or your background?
Thank you so much. And no, you've been kind enough to just give a full view or even more of my career. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you and B. The other B, I would say, BK. Yes.
Yeah, we've got BK and V here today, so we'll try not to get confused. And thanks again so much for your time today. It's really interesting to have a chat with somebody like you who is really in that intersection. Okay, so you're looking at voice technology, data, workflow, automations, AI. It's sort of all coming together. And I remember us catching up at a conference mid last year. I think it might have been the Salesforce conference. And I think you guys were just on the sort of tipping point to release some really exciting stuff, which you did on the AI front. So it's going to be really interesting to have this chat today. One question I've got right on the tip of my tongue for you is, from your perspective, what are the biggest shifts AI is creating in everyday business communications right now for not just our recruitment friends, but also outside of that in general sales?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. That's an interesting question, because I do think that, I guess, for us at Aircall, what we're seeing the biggest shift is about a better experience and better conversations rather than fewer or a lot more that are not meaningful conversations. And I'd like to go a little bit deeper about what I mean there. So we are seeing that communications in general, whether it's on voice, SMS, chat, WhatsApp, are becoming a lot more intentional, because they're allowing you to be more present during those conversations rather than, being busy taking notes or being reactive and distracted. They're allowing you to be more present during those conversations. And of course, AI is playing a big role in allowing you to be there in those conversations, whether it's with your customers, your partners, or your clients, whether it's surfacing some data that brings from your CRM or previous conversations. So yeah, we would say not necessarily faster, but just more intentional and more meaningful conversations.
I absolutely love it. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have my recorder, right, for for the meetings that I sit in. I love being able to give this eye contact as opposed to scribbling away, looking up every few moments whilst I'm taking my meeting notes so I don't miss anything. And to be honest, I was always shocking at taking notes. Even back in my recruitment days, sitting across a candidate doing an interview or something like that, it was a mad scribble. And having just that ability to be present, that one-on-one time, which is hard sometimes for us to foster in a very fast-paced life that we live now. To be able to have that true connection point there, I think is really empowering for that, external communication, or even with a teammate. You might be doing a strategic plan or a weekly catch-up or something like that. And just having that note taker going in the background just takes that pressure off so you can have some meaningful conversations there. I don't know about you, BK, but I'd be lost without my note taker.
Yeah, I think it's great. And I love they come back and, okay, here's the actions that you have to do. And at first I was a little bit wary. I'm like, are they going to catch everything? But it's perfect. Like, I've never sort of gone, oh, well, it's missed that or it's missed this. I am fully in on it, and I just fully trust it that it's going to give me the right actions at the end. As we're testing and trialing AI, we're kind of thinking, is it giving us what we want? And from that perspective, 100%, the tools I've used have been.
Yeah, 100%. And I think another interesting thing is that at some point, voice and SMS or all those conversations where a channel where conversations happened and then they were forgotten. So you spoke about something and it was forgotten. You never thought about it in your CRM as a data rich channel. And what we're seeing now is that those channels have become very data rich. So you're able to capture just data across different channels where like AI takes that unstructured data, whether it's in a call or, in a video, Zoom or video call or in an SMS, and then structures it and is able to put it back into your other systems. So I think that's a huge plus that has allowed us to be, as you guys say, more present and not worried about, did I take the full context? Did I gather the right information? Did I miss drilling more into the pain or the skills or so yeah, I think one of the biggest shifts as well is like, it's no longer that spoken and forgotten channel. It's something that we're able to go back and review and gather data from it.
So true. I find as well, like because I have a lot of conversations with recruitment founders, and then I start to mix, I think, did that person say that or did that person say that? And sometimes if I can just go quickly back into the notes and you see one thing and it'll just trigger the rest of the conversation that you had. So it's useful from that perspective too. You don't always have to go back through everything. It's just a few little highlights. You go, oh, that's right. And everything else fills in.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I've ever met, I've met one person who's been amazing at admin and also an amazing sales professional. So once most sales professionals hop off a call, step out of a meeting, they're on to the next thing. And very rarely do we see it that there are really great people putting every piece of information they've gleaned into the right slot into your system. So taking that burden, let us flourish as humans as we are designed by our DNA structures, rather than having to sort of crack the whip on Andrew because he didn't put the right field data in every time, which I think we're all a little bit guilty of after conversations. It just, again, gives you that more present time thinking more creatively and having that real connection point.
Yeah, totally.
So we covered this a little bit. I want to go a little bit deeper though, V. So, many people worry that AI tools are making teams dependent on shortcuts and they're looking for shortcuts. So in the world of, customer calls and sales conversations, do you see AI making people better communicators or simply faster? You did allude to it before, but it'd be good to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I guess that's a really good question. And I think we face it every day. Like, are we lazier because we now rely on someone taking notes? And are those notes just going to be pushed and then we're not thinking about, are we discerning what the AI is picking up on and all of that? I think the real gain is not so much about like whether it's making us lazier, which I don't think it is. I think it's just enhancing the quality of our conversations, right? So just going back into what Andrew said, yeah, people might forget to update the CRM. That affects the next conversation you're going to have, right? So if you pick up again the conversation, AI is allowing you now to have a full context, not only of what you spoke about in a meeting, but maybe what you spoke about on a follow-up call and what you then texted back and forth. So the next time you call that person again, you're having full context on the full thing. So to me, that's not being lazy, or how we're seeing it is not being lazy, but it's enhancing the quality of conversations that you're having. So I think when we use AI correctly, it can act more as a real-time coach, whether that's before the conversation or during the conversation, and not so much as a just shortcut of I'm going to rely on it to just take my notes and that's it. It's just like enhancing every single interaction that you're having across your conversations with customers or clients.
Just wondering, with people who've sort of picked up these technologies and they're doing well with it, and they're, you know, increasing their productivity, having better conversations, versus the people that is sort of saying, oh, it's not really working for me, I'm not optimizing what I feel like it should be doing for me. What can they be doing better?
I think that this is a very good question. And we're seeing at Aircall internally, I mean, we just spoke about us coming back from our offsite. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that we're all trying to, or being told that we should try to experiment with AI. And sometimes we're being stuck in the like analyzing how to do it. So I think a great way, and that we've been putting into practice, is doing these sessions where you share your best practices of how you're using AI. Because someone might not be comfortable with it, it doesn't mean that they will not become comfortable with using it. It might mean that they're just not knowing how to use it or how to leverage it. So when I think about, I mean, it comes from like ChatGPT and workflows that you might be using, or whatever, like Gemini tool you're using, for example. But what we're seeing at Aircall, it comes as well from sharing conversations easier, you know, real time sort of feedback, being able to review your conversations, your manager being able to score your conversations in real time. So they can share, let's say, like reps that are having high scores in their conversations, whether it's like following a script or something like that. They can share, this is what a start conversation looks like. Comment and check what they're being doing and saying, versus another people that might not be using it that well. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but I think we're all being pushed into, not pushed, but encouraged, I would say, to use AI. But sometimes it's the analysis paralysis of like, how do I use it? That it's almost like affecting us a little bit.
100%. And I fall into that trap. Sometimes I just go, oh my God, like, where do I start here? Yeah. And then you kind of go, look, you know, we're all learning this together. But that's such really practical advice, what you've just said there about, you know, sharing what's working and doing it in small chunks, doing it in almost in real time. That's clever.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be enhancements to whatever platform you use, be it Chat, GPT or Gemini or whatever, whereby your little AI buddy will give you a nudge and say, hey, Andrew, have you thought about doing this? Hey, Andrew, I can see you're working on this. It's going to be the enhanced, you know, remember the old Microsoft paperclip, which used to bug the hell out of everybody, I think. It's going to be the paperclip 2.0, where it will actually be an asset rather than, you know, some sort of annoyance that'll pop up. I think in the world of sales as well, you'd have so many powerful things that can give you those relevant nudges, so that, hey, Andrew, if you make another BD call, you're likely to get across from statistical perspective to getting another job in. Or, hey, Andrew, send 3 more resumes this week, and it's likely you're going to score a first round interview, which in your numbers, you know, 2 out of 3 or 50-50, whatever that stat is of first round interviews, gets a placement offer or something like that. So I think you'll hopefully almost be, you know, I predict it will be almost on sort of autopilot. So again, doing what us humans do better, which is grow and foster relationships, rather than have to think of the technical inputs that I need to put in, because, you know, most people aren't really great at that stuff. And, you know, Boolean scripting's been around for donkeys in our world, and there are still very few people who can do a really strong Boolean script. So we've moved away from that. We've gone to the natural language, which is brilliant. But I think that next evolution is going to be somebody coming to you, or AI counterpart, or, you know, AI double. And a lot of firms are putting those in. There's a couple of management companies that are actively putting your AI double in. So you've got your person, co-pilot, whatever you want to brand it, sat next to you to do that grunt work, which you can pass off. It'll get it done in 5 minutes as opposed to your 2-hour stretch of work, and then come back to you with the next thing. So exciting times, I reckon.
Yeah, just going back into what you were saying, Andrew, of having like your own double or coach. One of the great advices that I just got given was, what are those tasks that annoy you every day? Like, you know, those tasks that you have to repeat every day that annoy you. A good place to start is look how you can automate them, or, you know, look how you can remove them through AI or automation, because there's probably a way that you can do it. I was also thinking, while I was away, I had a few missed calls and stuff like that. Could I have put a voice agent in my voicemail that could answer my partner questions? Next time I'm probably going to do it. And it's just trying to like playing with what you have and not being afraid to just play, test, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just like losing fear of trying it out and seeing if it's going to work, because there can be a great thing that you create that then your whole company can be using in a month's time because you shared it with them, which I think is the value, like the final piece of value when it comes to adopting AI.
It's like kids, right? They went from an early age, they don't stop trying to walk. They get up, stumble, fall. Same with any sort of human behavior learning process. We've got to keep trying, learn from the failure, and then move on and really welcome the failure, which unfortunately I think our education system beats out of us in terms of welcoming failure. Red marker pen all over your scorecard from that last test is a really bad way, I think, to condition us humans, as opposed to saying, hey, Andrew, saw that you do this portion really well. Did you think about doing it a different way here? And I think that's the way the business is moving in terms of utilizing technology to help me be very comfortable in failing forward, learning from those things, and then quickly changing, fail fast and move on. And to your point, just iterate and keep testing. Love that idea of an AI agent. I'm working with a couple of companies at the moment putting those in so that when they can't take a phone call, somebody else does. And that somebody else is my AI buddy. And that AI has been trained up. They've got a knowledge base there of some of the FAQs, frequently asked questions. They're not there to maybe do the work at this stage on behalf of the person who didn't take the call, but certainly stronger than a voicemail or something that we currently use.
I think what's good about this year as well is that there's been some consolidation in the market, and I think the tools are becoming more robust. Some of the ones that weren't so good are falling away. There's been that kind of adjustment in the market. So we're playing a bit more of a serious game this year, or is that just me?
Yeah, I think you're right, BK. I mean, I've seen a lot of companies where they did try a few things, and there's, I think, a little bit of time to go. It'll come to me, but there's a curve, and we're at the sort of tipping point where AI was commonly available for the masses. A couple of years ago, that kicked off. We're at the peak there, and then we're about to actually go into a bit of a trough of disillusionment, as it's called. And that trough happens in every product development. Okay, so every leap of something, be it technology or a new piece of hardware or whatever it might be. So people get really excited, and then they get a little bit frustrated, and then it slides down. So I think this year we'll be experiencing a little bit of that. But to your point, I think there's been a lot of forming, storming, trial, error, failing forward. This thing worked, this thing didn't work, not only by the users, but also the developers of technology stacks as well.
If that's the case, then this is probably the time to really double down and figure out what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think we've all, and I'm guilty of this as everybody else is, I think, is tried to do the endpoint solution first. Say, I'll try that bit of tech. I'll try this thing. I'll try that thing. I think what we're seeing now is that a lot of companies are taking maybe that step back and looking at a strategic perspective around what my business does, what my business needs are, and then putting an AI roadmap in there, which is natural. I mean, these shiny things come out. We're humans. We want to try and play and throw investment in there. We have to be ahead of the curve all the time, etc. But I think it's one of those things, it's like, sharpen the axe before you chop the tree down, and you'll be much more efficient.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect. And I was just looking at Aircall's AI stack the other day, and I know you guys have invested heavily in AI-driven insights and call intelligence. I was really interested in reading that because I think that's a missing piece that we've, in our space at least, the recruitment space, had the leverage of. I know, generally recruitment is maybe 5 years, maybe a little bit longer behind, maybe SaaS sales, for example. So I found it really interesting to see the product that you guys feature. And have you seen any behavioral changes at this early stage? Teams, when they get that instant summary, or maybe, the live coaching prompts inside my earbud right now about what to say next, or maybe some objection handling and things like that. It's pretty cool tech.
Yeah. And I think just going back to what we were chatting before, where people were just trying to test new things, and I just said test with new things. What I mean is choose a use case, focus on a use case, maybe solving that bigger pain point that you have. You mentioned, for example, you have a lot of missed calls maybe after hours. So can you capture those missed calls and the data in those missed calls through a voice agent, so that someone doesn't feel like, they're just reaching a voicemail and let's see when they'll come back? Can you capture that through a voice agent and maybe respond some of their questions or answer the inquiries? But just going back to the behavioral changes, I think what we're seeing a lot is managers using real data for coaching and real-time coaching, and not just gut feeling. So they're relying a lot more on real data, on scorecards, for example, of how a call went. Did they hit the questions that they needed to ask? Did they gather the information? And you'll get a scorecard that tells you yes, green, 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 and then red. So you can see that a rep, for example, constantly misses something. Then you're relying on data for better coaching as opposed to just your gut feeling of whether someone is doing right or wrong. As a manager, you can't be there listening all day to calls, right? The other thing we're seeing on the rep side or on someone in recruitment is a little bit more self-awareness. So you identify, like interrupting a lot or, rushing into asking another question. Like it allows you to identify where you're being like a little bit, maybe not great in the conversation because you're able to listen back to them to see how people are reacting. You get the customer mood, etc. So you get a lot more insights from your own conversations and you also get your score. So you're saying like, okay, maybe as you say, I can improve here, etc. So I think overall what happens is that that feedback loop shortens. And if you're someone new or even someone seasoned, you can just like get daily learnings based on your conversations rather than weekly learnings or quarterly learnings, and reps can also just ramp up a little bit faster. So those are some of the things that we are seeing, like a lot more, just time to ramp or even having more meaningful conversations becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think I've always been coached that in the moment feedback, positive, negative, is the most powerful time to have that feedback session. So the closer you can give that feedback to the event, the more impact, positive or negative, it'll have with the individual to help reframe what they're doing or to celebrate what they're doing. So I just see, just the power of this stuff is phenomenal, where I hop off a call and my AI buddy says, "Hey, Andrew, you did a great job. Here are the top 3 things you did on this call. I noticed that you interrupted a couple of times with the prospect as they were describing a few things. For next call, probably best whatever the advice is," right? And that draws upon a huge talent pool of best call practice, best sales practice, whatever the process it is. It might be for a service desk, etc. I just get so excited about that. And then obviously having great data provides great dashboards. And that's where we've missed a lot of insight because back to our original conversation, I'm a salesperson. I will not put everything in the system manually, right? So some of those data points that we can use for dashboard activity or dashboard processing get missed. So historically, if the recruitment company had a dashboard, there'll be perhaps some zero for activities in there. And then that's reliant on me and my manager having a conversation like, "Hey, Andrew, did you do the work here or did you not record it in the system?" Because it's zero for that particular KPI. And, "Oh, of course I did the work. Sorry, boss, I forgot to put it in the system," right? So if that's just alleviated, then I'm doing minimal data entry. I'm getting all the good stuff put into the system for a whole raft of reasons. And then you can then have more meaningful time with your human boss or your human report to help coach them rather than have those, "Hey, Andrew, why didn't you do this conversation again?" I just get so excited about this stuff. It's certainly changing the dial, I think, in a lot of ways, and making it smarter and giving better customer service at the end of the day to our candidates or clients alike.
So speaking of customer service then, where do you draw the line between helpful automation and the human role? And then how do you design, with that in mind, how do you design AI features that support humans without replacing that human element of a call?
Yeah, that is such a good question because I think that's the thing that we fear the most. Like, is suddenly an AI agent going to handle everything? And like, what am I going to do? Am I going to lose my job? So that's like a fear that we hear people saying and we read in the news and everything. And the other thing is like, how is it helping us, as you say, like, where is it helpful automation? I think the way that we've, at least at Aircall, the way that we've designed AI is to support that listening part in the conversation, that prep part before the conversation. So the repetitive tasks, let those be handled by AI, but the empathy, the trust building, the listening skills, that is a human element that AI won't be able to replace, right, when you're in the call. So while AI obviously will automate some of the things that you do before the conversation, during the conversation, or after the conversation, what we're seeing is that the human elements are also being enhanced because that trust that we have, or the trust building exercises, that can only be done, like the empathy that you might feel for a candidate, that can only be done through a human connection. So Yeah, I would say that's what we're seeing. I don't know if that's what you're hearing as well on your side.
Yeah, I'm certainly seeing that as well. And to your point, BK, there has, I think, been a lot of fear around, oh gosh, if AI is doing this stuff as part of my role, does that make me less or more relevant as a resource for the organization? You know, there's other industries which are probably impacted very much dramatically with, I guess, the advent of AI. And there will be some industries that will change very, very much. I think for most service-based industries, it's my opinion that it'll actually increase demand rather than decreasing human demand, that is, for service provision. So I was reading the other day, there's an economic term called Jevons paradox, and it's a theory that states as efficiencies of something increase, the overall consumption also increases rather than decreases. So a good example there is legal services. Historically, they've been fairly highly priced. So if I went to a lawyer to do a contract review, then it will cost me X. Whereas now, because of AI in the mix, that legal firm can have a lot of efficiencies put in and have the contract review done via a very bespoke model internally, and then a very short amount of time is spent on the review of those recommendations. So the provision of that service cost is reduced massively. Instead of having a 2 or 3 hour bill, it could be 45 minutes. So that then allows the firm to offer more of those services. So I think it's going to be the same in a lot of industries. I mean, I was talking the other day with a recruitment owner, and I said, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a system that's so efficient that the local corner store who traditionally wouldn't use a recruitment firm to hire their staff can, get some assistance in finding people, and you could do it for such a low price it would be stupid for them to do it direct. So I think we'll have models where traditionally there'll be markets that'll be open for businesses in certain verticals like recruitment. So we're just going to create all these different pockets that we haven't thought of before.
That's such a fascinating way of looking at it, because up until now it's been, no, clients are going to do it all themselves. You're going to be replaced. But what you're saying is complete converse. It might,
Yeah, I know that I can change a tire. I could probably change my brakes. I could probably change the fluid, all that kind of stuff. But the time invested for me to do it, the efficiencies that I can do it, is much different to me going through to the local auto shop to get it done for me. So I think that, I think in all industries we'll be faced with change, and business models as we know it will be busted. And it's that fail, iterate until we come up with a different business model that makes sense for our industries. And I think there's going to be two businesses out there, BK, those that use AI and the businesses that are out of business. That's end of the story. It's not going to be any different to that. Interesting times.
Yeah, I think on that point, like again, it's like the analysis paralysis. And if you hesitate about, is this helpful automation or is it not? And I just don't want to try it because I want to stay true to how we do business, etc. You would see that other businesses are being more efficient at doing the same things that you're doing. And one example is just like, let's say you have a candidate and you're going to schedule an interview for them. You've scheduled that interview, and now you want to send them like an automated SMS, to remind them of the interview, and then maybe attach a PDF with some of the questions or suggestions that you want to do for them. Like if you're not using those automations, whether it's like a reminder that your interview is tomorrow, remember it is with this person, and a little like maybe summary of that person's profile or something like that, that makes you a better recruiter than the person that's having to remember to either call or send the manual text. Or whether it's like screening your candidates. If you are able to screen the same candidates with the same sort of set of questions, an unbiased maybe voice agent as a first, candidate screening, are you able to maybe leverage that and then use that time to do something more meaningful in your job? Not saying that is not meaningful, but it allows you to be more efficient and get more done. So I think it's more seeing it like which opportunities is this opening rather than which opportunities is this closing for me, or what role is it closing for me? It's like more, what can this open for me to do in my own role or beyond my own role as well? If you want to grow, right? It allows you maybe to step into something else that you've been wanting, whether it's a project or something else, because you're now some things are being handled by automations.
Yeah, I love that point. I was speaking with a business owner of a large outsource provision agency out of the Philippines, and they get 3,000 applicants a week coming through for jobs working for that firm. And there's just no way that they could interview 3,000 people every week manually. So they've got a first round interview is via an AI agent. To do that initial round interview, the candidates are prepped ahead of time saying, hey, Andrew, we'd love to offer you an interview with us. The first round, you'll be speaking with one of our AI AI agents. They'll be able to answer any questions you've got around working with us, what the role types are, etc., whatever their process is there. So it allows to take that alleviation of not being able to deal with that volume and missing out. Let's face it, we've all run campaigns where we've had applicants come through and you've got to draw the line somewhere. You can't keep interviewing, you can't keep doing pre-screen phone calls. You just have to draw the line. But that 51st, 151st, 1051st applicant might be the perfect person for your next role.
And it's good too, Andrew, because obviously we're seeing more and more of these AI applications as well. So those numbers are only going to go up.
Oh, it will. And, there's mechanisms in there to weed those ones out, right? So, and also detection of human at the end of the screen as well. There's a lot of technologies being developed so that I know that I'm looking at V or I'm actually speaking with BK rather than BK's, bot. There's the old wave the hand in front of the face to dissolve any sort of AI stuff. That's becoming, they've worked around that. So I've got a customer who gave me a call the other day and said, hey, Andrew, you like this story? I got a call the other day, had a chat with them, then got a follow-up call from another sales professional from that company and was told that the first call was actually an AI agent, not a human that I was speaking to. He had zero idea that was an AI agent at the end of the call. So I think the models are there. The voice is there for the chat side of things. I think video has got a little time to go, but it's, I think, this year.
I've had 3 calls this week with founders who've been pitched by companies doing the AI outreach, and that's exactly what they said. The first call was an AI. And so they've all said, we think it's a great idea. And I was like, well, great, look at it. But to your point at the beginning of the call, you've got to look at how you're using it, what's the use case, where does it fit into the wider strategy, what do you then do with that call, how do you bring it into the system, what do you do with that data from there? And I think sometimes it's that shiny like, oh, that was pretty cool, and then they get sold on it, and then it's like, all right, well, how does this fit into my business? But they were saying exactly the same thing, so that's obviously pretty widespread.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the machine doesn't take breaks. You can program it to call during business hours. In some areas you have to do that by legal requirements, all that kind of stuff there, but it just gives you that amplitude of reach that we just don't have with a finite number of people in the team and the finite number of hours that Andrew works every week, except so.
Gets rid of call reluctance too, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I think, yeah, it does. Well, I mean, it helps streamline that process. So to your point, BK, the initial screening might be done the first round by the bot, the agent, and then it's pre-qualifying those people. They're warmed up for the human to step in. And
but what about in a BD capacity where you just, cold reach outs, like cold calls by the bots? Like, what's that going to look like?
It will be, I think it's just going to be a different world. So providers are screening those already. So, I don't know about your phone company, but mine does screen out those if I want them to. Now, because I'm a business owner, I take all calls coming in. So
screens out the AI calls.
Well, unknown numbers and things like that. So you can have a switch that on for your device in most cases, be it Android or Apple. And if they're not on your contact list, it goes straight through to voicemail. But to Veronica's point, what I'm really excited about is having my agent take those calls if I can't take the call. And then they will weed those sales opportunities out or in. Maybe I do want to speak to a roofing company that's ringing up and doing a BD outreach. Hey, Andrew, we've done an analysis of the area and see that your roof needs a little bit of work. And, the tiles at the top, because this is what they're doing. This is the tech that roofers are working with, for example, now. They've got the geo maps of areas and they can pinpoint trouble within certain roof structures and see worn tiles, basically. So they can do some very targeted outreach. And to your point, BK, why not use a bot to do that initially with the right information in hand? It's going to tune my ears in to say, oh, actually, there is something there that I need to think about.
So you could have the bot going around checking the roofs and then feeding that information to the AI agent, and the AI rings and says, hey, the person doesn't even have, and then they send the robot around to fix it.
Yeah, maybe there's the drones will fly over with the new roofing tiles, right?
The tiles.
Yeah, it's actually permanent. Literally right now, there is a roofer on my roof, not from a cold outreach by any means. There was a cracked tile that we needed to get sorted. But that's what's happening now. I mean, the roofing is quite advanced because there's big money. Each one of those jobs is worth a lot, right? If you're replacing the roofing of an entire building. Likewise, in our industry, you get a good roll on, that's 20, 30, maybe more K deal. So why wouldn't you put efficiencies where you can use the tech at hand to maximize that outreach and then, customer service along the way.
Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit more on that because if I think of business owners and whether it's recruitment or other industry and going back to the use cases, I'm thinking if you want to bring AI, you want it to be successful. You don't want it to be like this, first drink and you take a sip of it and it's like, ugh, never want to try it again. So I think choosing what we're seeing and what we're doing is we're being very narrow, if you want to see it that way, in use cases. We want a particular use case that's a big pain point that we can solve. We don't want to say AI is going to fix everything in your business. No, but it is going to fix whether it's, for example, you have a lot of like overflow calls. We can fix that. We can put, as we say, that voice agent that can take the overflow of calls, whether it's in like legal industry, that instead of putting your customers on hold, hey, let me put you on hold, let me put you on hold, you can have that voice agent to capture that overflow. However, so you have to choose a right use case. In the outbound use case that we were touching on, when it's like cold outreach, I think you want to think like, is this going to be the right use case for my business? And in my opinion, if you're going to use an outbound voice agent, you want to do it for an account management piece, right? Instead of having someone, a human resource, spending their days just confirming appointments, or as we said, candidate interviews, you can have a voice agent that acts as an account manager that says, hey, Andrew, remember your interview is tomorrow, just giving you a call for that. That's a good outbound agent. That's because it's invited, it's helping that candidate attend the interview and be prepared for it. So it's the right balance of where am I wanting to find the efficiencies, right? It's like having a tool that's going to send 1,000 emails, that outbound cold emails, not because you do more calls. That means that you're going to have more connects. You want to have the right calls, and you want to make sure that the candidates actually appear to the interviews and do a good job there. So that's a good use of an outbound agent. And that's the way we're seeing it. Like, where are you going to see the most benefits and good outcomes in AI, rather than, I'm going to be able to call 1,000, 2,000 people a day. Is that going to be the right outcome for the business? I'm not too sure. Yeah.
I agree. I think you've got to pick your elements to start with, right? So to your point, most companies are average to good, not excellent, in those follow-up reminders around, hey, you've got this appointment coming up or this interview with Fred Snarl at XYZ company. Here's the top 10 tips of acing that interview. Or do you have any questions? And it can be interactive around answering some of those questions, or at least flag a conversation needs to happen with the account manager who's representing me for this role.
Yeah, or do you need to reschedule it? Like, are you still okay with doing it? Has something come up? Oh no, I need to reschedule. Okay, we have the next time available on Monday next week. Does that work for you? Yes, boom, it's rescheduled in real time. Like, that avoids missing the appointment and also having that next appointment booked. So I think just that. And also, BK, I think you touched on, what did you call it? People are being afraid of making outbound calls.
Reluctance.
Call reluctance. Yeah, I love that. I need to write it down. Call reluctance. It's funny because I started I'm Mexican, right? But thick accent in English. Started my job here in Australia at Aircall as a BDR. One of the hardest things, and we didn't have that back then, was how do I start the call? And I would think about my accent the whole time and think about how it's going to sound. And let's be honest, yes, you hear an accent and it's like, oh, where are you calling me from? There is that reluctance, and it's not only accent driven. It's just it's going to be a cold call, whether it's, but I feel like when you have a thick accent, having something to look at and read off is actually helpful. So in the past, we've had scripts, and you might have your page, in front of you, or you flick through a PDF, or you put notes, or I don't know, something like that. Now technology is allowing you not only to have that set of questions, that opening line that you can follow, and you can just read it and be calm reading it because you're reading. You're not having to think too much, which allows you to enter the conversation a lot more confident, knowing that you have something there telling you you can ask this question and then this question. You now are also able to get those, you get an objection, this is too expensive, or no, that's not the right role for me. You're able to get those real-time prompts as well of how to handle those objections, because the AI knows how to handle that because it's done maybe 1,000 or how many calls across your whole base of recruiters. So now you're able to have those real-time coaching moments as a rep. So right now I'm wow, I wonder if I did that job again today, if I'd be able to just feel a lot more confident and less, because I think we all need those skills in life, being able to pick up the phone and call someone and sell them something. That skill is invaluable because we're all selling something in life, whether you're going to sell, to apply for a house, or you're going to put your kids to school and you want to, go to the interview and say like how you and your family are great, or whatever you need to sell in life. We need to learn to do those things. So I think that's a good, valuable job, but we now have the right tools to make a rep feel supported during the first times they do that. So I think there's tools if we look for them to reduce that reluctance that you were speaking about. And it's a lot more meaningful than having a voice agent. And back to the outcomes, I think you'd get a lot better outcomes putting that than an outbound voice agent just doing cold calls all day.
100% agree. It's an amazing evolution landscape that we're looking at here, and really appreciate the time you've been spending with us today. So many questions I've come up with that I'll pepper you with after this session, that's for sure. But before we jump off today, do you want to talk to us a little bit more about Aircall and how it's best for viewers to get in contact with you?
Yes, of course. So for those of you who don't know who Aircall is, we are an AI-powered communications platform. Basically, think about your calls, but not just calls. We're an SMS platform, a WhatsApp platform, and as we've been speaking around this conversation, we have an AI layer on top of that helps reps and support teams, whether it's sales support, customer service, handle conversations in a better way through AI insights before, during, and after a call or a conversation, and then agents in general. So you have your voice agent, SMS agent, that's your companion to just help build better conversations.
Amazing. How's it best for people to have a bit of a further chat with you or one of the team?
Yeah, so I guess, for myself, obviously, if you want to get in touch and then I can put you in contact with the right person, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm active there. But yeah, if you just want to have a look at the website and what we do, just aircall.io. It's a good place as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out to any of our team on LinkedIn.
Thanks so much again, V, for spending this time with us today. It's been really fascinating. I've got so many ideas. And as I said, I'll get to reach out to you with a few questions.
Yeah, really interesting and really practical advice too. I love listening to everything that you shared. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, guys, for the conversation. And I appreciate you opening the space to me and also obviously to Aircall, an exciting thing. So hope to see you at some of the events that we will be attending, whether it's like with our partners at Bullhorn or TalentX or anything in the recruitment industry. Would love to see you there.
Amazing.
Definitely will.
Thanks, Fee.
Thanks again, V.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for your support.